So welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca Niles. I am the Executive Director of the System Dynamics Society, and I am a longtime user of the Systems Thinking Playbook. So very excited to have Linda Booth Sweeney here and to learn from all of you about how you use this. So Linda Booth Sweeney is our main speaker today. She works with organizations to support systems change on complex issues such as climate change, food systems resilience, and childhood obesity. She's also an accomplished writer of many system books for adults and children. This, of course, includes the Systems Thinking Playbook. You're also in for a real treat because Linda has brought along two surprise guests to help us today. So Dennis Meadows, an emeritus professor of systems management and former director of the Institute for Policy and Social Science Research at the University of New Hampshire, is here. He is, of course, widely known as the co-author of The Limits to Growth, but he is also a co-author of the Systems Thinking Playbook. We also have Tracy Benson, who leads a national team of exceptional educators at the Waters Center for Systems Thinking. And so we're looking forward to hearing about how they use the games in this book, as well as learning from all of you. And I'm going to turn it over to Linda Booth right now. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you, Rebecca. I think what I'm going to do is just quickly share my screen. And oh, there we are. Hold on one second. Okay, and I'm actually not going to, sorry, you're going to see this kind of messy screen here for a second. I'm not going to do this in full mode, you know, what is it called? Screen share, because what happens is I can't see you. And that's actually pretty important in some of these online hacks. And I really want to have access to the chat. So I hope that this size is working. If for some reason this is not working for you, maybe put in the chat. I can try to enlarge it a little bit. So I here just.
Is everyone seeing it? I'm not seeing it.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
Others are seeing it, so it's just me. Go ahead, proceed.
Okay, maybe yeah. So what I thought we could do today is a couple of things. One is just take a brief stop on what makes it hard to think in terms of systems. You know, I think virtual worlds don't necessarily make it easier, but there's some challenges that I think it's good to kind of keep in mind. What kind of technologies can we leverage? They're emerging, right? There's more and more technologies. What would be useful for us, those of us who really care about building systems thinking capacity? Then we're going to do some game demos. You're going to really get in it and do it yourself. I'm so grateful that Dennis and Tracy will add some of their experience and their expertise. They have been using these games, helping create these games for as long as I have. And then I'd love to leave some time for community sharing and Q&A. And in true experiential fashion, I'm just going to pause on that. So let me just tell you one thing before we jump in. You have some people in the waiting room, Rebecca. So before we jump in, I just want to say that what's been really interesting during COVID is, you know, some of my bigger work went away, you know, because of a project wasn't able to go off. But I have ended up doing so much online systems thinking capacity building. I've just finished something for UC Berkeley for their engineering students. I did, you know, helping to see the systems. We did games. I worked with a corporate accelerator forum. You know, how do you innovate from different perspectives? We used some of the games. I'm in a Buckminster Fuller design science cohort, living systems. How do you bring those to life? We use the games. And one of the ones that was my favorite that I just did 2 weeks ago was working with homeschooling parents who are actually they read Danella's book on thinking in systems. And they're like, why is this not in the way we're teaching our kids? So we did some of the games. And the best part was there were little kids sitting on the laps of the parents. So we really got to, you know, really do some of these games experientially. So those are and there's more, but, you know, so there's so many opportunities if we want to take them to leverage some of the technologies online. So before we kind of dive in here, I thought in true experiential fashion, we could do a quick stretch. And for the most part, no one's watching. If you want nobody to watch you stretch, just turn off your video, or if you don't care, leave it on. And I think it's a really great way to kind of open our minds and our bodies to some of the things we're about to do. So here's my simple stretch for you. Just I'm actually standing, so I'm kind of, it makes it easier for me, or you can also do this sitting. So you're going to take your arms and make them like a helicopter. And then what I want you to do is to kind of, and this is optional, so you don't have to do it, but twist yourself so you're just slowly going to where you naturally stop. Don't pull a muscle or anything, but just stop and note where your hand is on the wall or whatever you're looking at. Then I want you to come back. And then we're going to do a big belly breath. I'm going to take your arms and you're going to go up over your head. Ready? Come on, Rebecca. I need you in.
I'm monitoring the chat.
I'm
Linda,
just kidding you. Okay.
You know, if you can,
Okay.
if you can also try to speak up a little bit. I think some people are having
sorry.
trouble
How's that?
you.
Is that better? I just stepped away from the microphone. So, all right, one more time. Just gonna take a quick breath up. Ready? And then out. Okay, now you're gonna go back over to the right-hand side and notice how far you went that time. Did you go any farther? You can go thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, I have to see people. How am I going to see more people? Okay. So hopefully you went a little bit farther, okay? And that's because we stretched. And that's what we want to do with these games. Often, like just even being experiential, it stretches both your mind and your body. So I don't leave you lopsided. Let's do the other side real quick, okay? So now you're going to go the other side, go left. I'm going to keep speaking to the microphone. And then come back, and then you do one quick stretch overhead again. And this time just go to the left and go to the right. Okay, and then take a big deep breath out. Ready? Okay, so hopefully on both of those, when you do it again, you go just a little farther. That's actually called helicopter stretch. It's not in the playbook, but it's a great one to just start off a session. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of the, oops. Hold on, sorry. Actually, one thing before I get into some of the content, what I wanted to tell you is just in preparation for this session, I actually had a lot of fun starting to annotate the different games from, what technologies can we use? And so I have a Google Doc that I've been creating. It tells you what type of game, whether it's a mass game and you can use it with a lot of people, or whether you can only use it with a small number of people. Do you need equipment? What technology? So at the end, if this is of interest to you, we'll have an opportunity for you to get a copy of this. I'm actually hoping that over the course of this time together, I'm going to add more ideas from you into this document, so that it'll be like a crowdsourcing of, adaptations for the playbook. Okay. And Rebecca, I'm going to trust you to just watch the chat if there's any important questions I need to answer along the way. We good?
Yeah, the one question was whether the PowerPoint will be available to the group afterwards.
There'll be I'll make some of it available. Yeah. Okay. All right, you ready? So quickly, I think it's good to remember some of the challenges to learning and decision making in systems. One, because what's going to happen, I think, is when we use these games, we can use them to address some of these challenges. So often cause and effect separated, time and or space. I think about, I live near Walden Pond, and we have a community that, let's say in the winter, uses ice melt, and that goes into the pond, which is not directly near the road. So there's a sometimes people don't make the connection, right, between cause and effect that aren't immediately near each other. We misperceive feedback, closed loops of cause and effect, and often are thinking linearly. A causes B, end of story. And that we miss a whole host of dynamics when we are not thinking in terms of causal closed loops. We tend to focus on proximate cause. Proximate cause is what's right in front of us, what's, the immediate situation, and not looking at the whole host of factors that actually might influence whatever the situation is. And often our mental models go unchallenged, even our formal models. And so how can we, you know, include the surfacing, testing, exploring mental models as part of our work around systems? And, we want to get to what's called, I think of as generative conversation, productive conversation. So how can we remind ourselves about, improving our listening, our hearing, our use of visualization in the work we do around, seeing systems, shifting systems, etc. And lastly, actually, there's more than this, but another one is we assume proportionate cause and effect. So, you turn the dial up on your radio and you get the same amount of output as you would expect, or you put your foot on the gas pedal and you get you go up 10, miles an hour. But that's not how nonlinear systems work. Think about, kids in a cafeteria, few start to talk, then a few more start to talk. They can't hear each other, so they talk louder, and so it can exponentially grow and turn to the point you can't hear anybody. And that's just a little simple example, but think about the spread of a virus or the spread of a word of mouth. It doesn't happen in a linear cause and effect proportionate way. So we really need to have the ability to have conversations about cause and effect that is not what we're physically used to in our everyday lives. We have to extend our cognitive abilities. Okay, so some of the technologies that we can take advantage of: virtual conferencing, what we're doing right now. And what I thought as I got into this and was exploring all the different technologies, it was so obvious to me that Zoom actually has a lot to offer just in and of itself. We're going to explore the annotate options, the poll. You can use polls, you can use chat, breakout rooms. There's a lot that you can do just with Zoom. And then I'm sure a lot of people have heard of virtual whiteboards. Two that I like, Mural and Miro. They're basically a whiteboard, but then you can bring on, collect, as a group, you can bring on Post-it notes, you can vote, you can use a whole host of things. We'll see if we get to looking at some of that. And then the one that I'm actually kind of having a lot of fun with right now is virtual worlds, where as a group, you're actually in the world. So GatherTown is one. I believe the last System Dynamics Society online conference was a virtual world. So as you move your avatar, you get closer to someone, you can actually start to talk with them. But that actually opens up a lot of opportunities for replicating some of the games that I loved to do in person. I think we can play with that virtual world space and take advantage of that. So far, so good. Everybody, you can hear me? Rebecca, yeah, we're good? Okay, great. And just, I always like to remember, like, why are we doing this? Why experiential? And I think Lao Tzu said it really well. When I hear, I forget. When I see, I remember. And when I do, I understand. And I'm not trying to just take advantage of technology because there's some fancy new technology out there. I really want to evolve. I really want to develop new, timely skills. And I think whole immersive whole systems learning is one way to get us there, to extend our thinking and our doing. Okay, so let's start with one. And very simply, I'm sure I noticed in the chat that some were completely new to the systems thinking playbook, and we have old timers. So just bear with me because we're going to try to, have something interesting and new for everyone. But if you have done this before, just give it a shot and see how it feels virtually. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to simply take your finger. There's no equipment needed for this one. If you had 500 people, you could do this. If I've done this with very large numbers, and I've done it with one. So that's the beauty of this particular exercise. I used to use a pen, but people would blame the pen or for what would go on in this. So I decided, let's just keep it simple, use your finger. So what you're gonna do, and you can actually, in this case, you can change the direction, you can adjust your video. So I'm gonna do that a little bit just to show you. That's a hack, by the way. So you're going to make a clockwise circle on the ceiling like this. If you can see my hand, see I'm moving my, there, clockwise. So you're looking at the ceiling and you're drawing a clockwise circle on the ceiling. And now slowly you're going to bend your elbow until you're looking down on that circle. Okay, now what I need you to do is to tell me what way is the circle moving when you're looking down on it. So put that in the chat. Let's see if I can get the chat here. And it's okay if it's not, well, you know what? For some reason, I'm not able to see the chat. Oh, here it is. Let's see if I get it. Okay, great. So I can see your chat.
Counterclockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise,
Okay,
same direction, different perspective. Yep.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, so what happened? You can put that in the chat too. And if there's one person who's brave and wants to just tell me their experience quickly, you could raise your hand. And Rebecca, I'm having like a partial view here. So if you see you pick somebody, if anybody wants to share their experience.
So feel free to raise your hand. You should see the.
And this is also a hack because depending on the settings of your Zoom, you can have the raise hand feature. And what happens is a little hand goes up and then you can interact around the extra activity that way. So do you have anybody that's
no one's raised their hand, but I'm going to call on Farzad because he hit yes. Great. So Farzad, would you like to share?
Sorry, that was from a long time ago. I guess it's still stuck there.
Well, you're stuck. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I did this one right because, or I didn't get the same experience. So I was hoping someone would explain it to me again.
Well, Farzad, I'm glad that you said that. So let's do it. Let's do it one more quick time because you're probably not alone. And when I'm in person, it's so much easier for people to say, hey, you know, that didn't work. And so that is something that you'd want to be able to do with this and to ask, did it not go counterclockwise for somebody? So let's just do it one more time. And often we override in our brains, you know, what could happen. So if you draw a circle on the ceiling, you're looking up at it. Okay, good. And then you keep drawing that circle and all you're gonna do is lower your arm. And so you're looking down on the circle. There you go. That should, and now which way is that going? Not working. Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
With you.
So no, that makes more sense.
We're going to stay on afterwards for a couple minutes, and we'll spend the time. But so the point of this exercise, right, is that let's say we're talking about an organization. At the top of the organization, you might be saying it's going like this, and at the bottom of the organization, you might be saying, no way, it's going like this, you know. Or look what's happening with COVID right now. You know, from one perspective, it's, you know, it's one very particular point of view, and from another, it's a different point of view. But the point about this exercise is that it's all the same system. It's different perspective, different point of view in the system. And so, you know, if we want to innovate, if we want to have an innovative response, we need to look at what position that we are in a system. Are we only operating from our own position? Can we change our point of view? And so a great complement to this, and you've probably heard this, is the blind man and the elephant. Just have to be careful about the blind part depending on your audience, but that's a great, you know, arguing from your own perspective. I think this cartoon, let's see, it's an oldie but goodie. it's, hey, I'm sure glad the hole isn't an our end, it's like you're really only seeing your perspective. So when you need to have that kind of conversation about we need to pick our heads up, we need to look at the whole, I think this circle in the air can be a really useful activity and very easy to do online. The one thing that Farzad just helped to surface is that you really have to go slow enough so that if somebody has a question, they can work it until their hands are going in the right way. Okay, so so use the chat or hands raised feature, and I guess the point about that one, just to reiterate, our perspective affects the actions we take in complex systems. Okay, so sometimes it's not just, it might even have to physically change your perspective to get more insight. Good? Demo 1, done. Okay, so now we're going to go on to demo 2, and this is a activity called Arms Crossed, and I am going to stop sharing because one of the people who does this the most masterfully is Dennis Meadows, and Dennis is with us today. As Rebecca said, Dennis is the co-author of the Playbook. I actually wrote the first volume when I was just coming off of Outward Bound, all experiential learning, and I met Dennis at MIT. He was also doing a lot of experiential learning, and we ended up partnering and co-authoring volume 2 and 3. So it's been a great partnership and relationship. So I'm going to stop sharing. I think that's probably the best thing, right, for Dennis to do his. Yeah. Okay. So Dennis, how are we doing? Yeah, right on time, pretty much. Where's Dennis?
Here I am.
Yay. Okay, good. Are you up for leading us through Arms Crossed?
So thank you very much, Linda. It's, as I said in my chat, a wonderful privilege to be here without even leaving my home and being able to be in communication with people from many different countries. I use the system thinking playbook exercises very often in my speeches. One of my favorites is Arms Crossed. All of these simple exercises are to be used as metaphors. That means the experience of doing the game isn't in itself the lesson. You can't run somebody through the exercise and then say, okay, you go home and figure it out. It requires that you bridge from the experience of the game over to some features of real life that you think it's important for the audience to talk about. And I'll demonstrate that with Arms Crossed, which I typically use to start my speech. I'm going to pretend like none of you have seen this exercise before and that you're in a large audience, which I'm addressing for the first time. Before I start my remarks, I would like all of you just to cross your arms. So please cross your arms. Look around the audience and make sure that everybody's actually doing it. And then say, please look down and see which of your wrists is on top. In my case, it's this wrist, the left-hand wrist. So remember that. Drop your arms. Great. Now, cross your arms. And look down and see which wrist is on top. And remember. Okay. Drop your arms. And now let's conduct a little empirical survey. Everyone who had the same hand up, same wrist up both times, raise your hand. So you now look around the audience. And you will observe that the vast majority of people are raising their hands because by and large, everybody does cross their arms the same way. Without doing a formal count, you can simply assert, almost everybody is doing it the same way. Then I say, fine, let's see which is better, left or right. Everyone who had their right hand up on top, raise your hand. So roughly half the audience will raise their hand. And then you say, everyone who had your left wrist up both times, raise your hand. Once again, you look around the audience, and without doing a precise count, you can confidently say, oh, it's about 50-50. But then you say, fine, we would expect that. When you get into the habit of crossing your arms and it works for you, there's no real reason to change it. It's a very useful habit. It gives you the opportunity to get rid of your arms when you need to do something that requires some other part of your body. But now, sometimes habits need to be changed. And so I ask you, cross your arms the other way. Usually there will be in the audience some laughter, some nervousness, and most people will eventually come to do it the other way, but it's not automatic. And at that point, you come home on your metaphor. You can say, great, this shows three things. First, it is possible to change your habit. Second, it takes a little time to figure it out, and often you'll make mistakes the first time. And third, it's uncomfortable at first. The patterns of thought that we have are a habit, and then I'll launch off into whatever theme it is I'm dealing with, climate change or energy transition or whatever, and say that we've come to think about this in a way which has worked for us in the past, but now we need to take a new perspective on it. And that's, of course, the purpose of my speech today. And this exercise shows three things: that you can do it, but it's going to take you a little time, and it won't be uncomfortable at first. And then I launch off into my speech. Thank you.
Great. So we have a comment from Jillian, who recommends that when you're online, you might want to ask people to unmute themselves when they play the game so that you can hear their reaction.
Great idea.
And I would, thank you so much, Dennis. And I would also add that I think some people are commenting about the raised hands feature. I think part of that has to do with the setup of this particular Zoom call. And you can make sure that yours has a raised hand feature. You can also do with the way Dennis framed it, you could use the polling feature on Zoom. You could add, right hand, left hand, you could just have people click and you could actually see numbers come up that way. That takes some advanced planning, but that could also be a good support.
Yep. And I have, so actually the hand feature raise hand feature is available in here. You need to first click on the participants in the bar. And then if you look, you'll see it's one of the choices next to yes, no, go slower. You can see it in the screenshot that I just put in there. So that should be set up when you allow people to react.
Thumbs up, great. And as we're learning, right, going along here, because we're all stretching and growing, at least I am, is that, if you plan to use any of these features, doing a little run through in advance. Here's how you use the hands raised. Here's how you use the poll. That's probably a good, not to assume that people have used those features of Zoom. Any other comments, Dennis?
I'll just say that although I've considered using thumbs up or hand clap as a way of feedback on this one, I think in this case, it's a little distracting. It's such a simple exercise. You don't want people to get sort of diverted from the central theme of the metaphor. And I like Jillian's suggestion very much that you at least turn on sound, because this general impression of people being nervous and even laughing a little bit as they try to do it is an extremely important part of the exercise. But if people start getting hung up on how do you get your chat up and down, and if I put my thumb up on the screen, is it going to come down by itself, or I have to do something to get it? I think they start paying attention to that and not looking at your central message. And as with all of these simple exercises, they need to be very short and very clean so that you can get off into the substance of whatever you want to do with your workshop. The exercises are not in themselves the main menu. They are like seasoning in a soup. They're a way of enhancing the quality of what it is you're going to be doing with them.
We have a few hands up, Linda.
Go ahead.
Kevin? You'll need to unmute yourself, or I guess I can probably unmute you.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was left over from earlier. Apologize for that.
Okay, that's fine. Jose? I've unmuted you, or I'm trying to unmute you. You might be doing it too. Jose, do you have a question or a comment? Okay, LS?
All right, why don't we
Okay.
carry on and just put it.
Anna Karina
Oh,
just
Anna.
put her hand up.
Okay. Go ahead, Anna.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask if you can share experience of in practice, how does this engages people to indeed work towards change? For me, it's a novelty. Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Do you have the effectiveness? I think that's what I mean. Thank you.
Dennis, do you want to?
No, you go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, so what I heard you say, Anna, was how have you used this particular exercise to have an impact, right? I think that's what you said. So I can say for me, I have used it in conversations, let's say with a group of teenagers that were leading systems change. And we talked about how habits don't always serve us. There are habits, we're not aware of them, but when the conditions change, our habits need to change. And so this just, and also that in that, I don't know if you felt this, but when you switch to the other side, it feels awkward, right? And the awkwardness is a sign that you're actually getting out of one habit and trying to, look at what the conditions are and the new activities you can do. So it was a really stimulating conversation about, let's say how we use, when we're talking about sustainability and climate. So what were our habits and what habits do we need to change? So that was one way we used it. But uncomfortableness is a good thing in this kind of surfaces that. Does that help, Anna? Good? Yeah.
Yes, I think it's really a brilliant exercise. It was very surprising for me, and I think it's probably very, very effective. Thank you very much.
Super simple, but you can, it's in the way Dennis frames it, and you can frame it yourself. Yep. Fantastic. Okay. Okay to go on, Rebecca, or do you have another one?
I think we're good. Oh, well, there was one question a little further back. Let me grab it. And I didn't write the name of the person. What would be an effective and proven leadership practice or behavior to be able to see all relevant perspectives? It was related to the finger game. I don't remember your name for that.
Yeah, I saw
It's a
that.
hard question.
Well, I will give just a quick answer to that, Dennis. I don't know if you want to take on that as well. But I'll just say, to see all perspectives, that's a big order, a tall order. And I really can't say that there is something that would do that. I will say in regards to these games, the game Web of Life is actually nice for that. Web of Life in conjunction with a connection circle can be a really nice pairing for getting the different perspectives in of a system. Yeah, so I would start there, but I don't know, Dennis, do you have any comments that you would add?
Yes, I find very useful the game Frames. It doesn't guarantee that you will see all perspectives, but it does open up the possibility that reasonable, intelligent people of goodwill can see the situation very differently. And that recognition is often enough to get people into a constructive conversation about it. The notion or the metaphor of looking through a little cup that you make with your fingers at reality shows what a limited perspective we typically have, and shows that you do need to be aware other people are looking differently. That works for me very well. In my conversations with environmentalists and economists, I often use this as a way of getting past the initial reactions.
So I think since you raised frames, which I also love, Dennis, why don't you not go through the whole thing, but could you give a quick framing, quick explanation of how even with the finger you might do that? Or if not, I can point people to it in the book.
I haven't, yes, I'll give a quick response. I haven't tried to use frames virtually. And it would, so I'd have to think about that. I believe you could do it probably by screen sharing with a complex image and having people look at different parts of the image through the same circle.
Right. Yeah.
What I do is set something up on the stage and then ask, I have somebody sit on the stage and hold out both hands, and I ask them, then half of the audience to look at one hand and half of the audience to look at the other hand through their frame. And then I say, okay, please raise your right thumb. And the person on the stage does that. And then I ask the audience, how many thumbs are being raised at the moment? And of course, the people looking at one side think one, and the people looking at the other side think 0, when in fact, it's the same person doing exactly what they're doing. So there would be a counterpart of that, I think, virtually. The key point is, once again, do it quick. Don't over-intellectualize these exercises. Don't spend 15 or 20 minutes getting into it, because the real value is in using them as a metaphor.
Yeah. I think Jillian's right. You can do. I also do it economists and environmentalists. So the economists, whatever, and you could do it that way. And I know, Tracy, you just did frames with a really large group. Is that right? Online? I don't know if she heard me. Okay. Anyway, I'm pretty sure Tracy, when she gets on, maybe we can circle back to that. Is that right, Tracy?
So we actually had frames for people and use the different sizes so that you could, you can get really creative with this. And so this came in their toolkit with the form that we were doing. And so there's all different sizes depending on, the size of the system that you represent. So that's what we looked at. We looked at the nested systems of the early childhood system. So, we have a family, like a classroom or school, and a state agency or national agency. So people were able to share the boundaries of the system that they were coming in, but also the views that those boundaries generate.
Okay, yeah. So, and these are all fantastic examples that I'll add into that document. Okay, so that's some of the reframings. And David asked if I could repeat the environmental economist metaphor. So I did this not long ago. It was for the World Wildlife Foundation. But so let's say thumbs up is the environmentalist, and maybe thumbs down the economist. It could go both ways, right? And then people are looking. You have them look at, what's the state of the world, and if they're focused just on this, from one perspective, it's thumbs up, and then you have them focus. One side of the room focuses on the left, this side. One side of the room focuses on this side, and they realize it's just their perspective. And when they pull back, because I actually had them just use their finger, and you go like this, you're seeing one perspective, and when you pull back, you see both perspectives. And that was a great conversation starter for where we needed to go with conservation and systems.
Linda, I'd like to build on what you just said.
Sure.
Framing actually has in two aspects, spatial and time. People can be short-sighted or long-sighted. They can be narrowly focused or broadly focused. And a key point where you take the frame and move it in is basically you're taking a longer-term perspective. And as you do that, you see more and more. Finally, if the frame is close enough, all perspectives look the same, because over the long term, we're all in the same boat. So once again, it's helpful to have people think that they may be restricting their understanding, not only by what they're looking at, but by over what time period they're considering it.
So Linda, I think Daniel Schwartz has a comment.
All right, and then after that one, we'll move on to the next one. But sounds good. Is Daniel gonna go off mute?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'm very happy to be here today. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really glad. And of course, I read your book, Dennis, in German. And I got even more depressed when I read this book here about your colleague, Jorgen. And I'm really delighted that you put me, after this depression, I finished those 2 books now 2 weeks ago. And I'm really delighted that you cheer me up in this way in the first 10 minutes of this conversation. I'm really happy that it's so simple. And I'm just wondering, we are doing series games. So we try to use the medium games to save the real world with games. That's what we do. We try to model the real world in games and give them this as an instrument. Exactly, actually, what you did, yes, with limits to growth and the computer models. And I'm wondering, one of the top 10 video game emotions we can steer up, so to say, in our folks is amusement. It's one of the most important video game emotion we have. And my question is, how is, because this was now a surprise for me to have this change in perspective. What is about amusement? Because we found out in our research that amusement is really the most important thing.
All right, I'll let Dennis answer that real quickly, and then I'll say one word, and then thank you. That's a great question. Amusement. What do you think, Dennis?
When you get off into video games and more complex games, literal games, it's just a totally different field. And there's nothing simple to say about it. I think for this group today, we should stay focused on these really simple metaphorical games. That's something we all share in common. Daniel, if you want to get into a private conversation after this about video games, I'd be delighted to do it.
Yeah, actually, and Daniel, I heard your question about the role of amusement.
Yes.
In these games, and I think it's common to almost all the games because, and I'll just, my personal perspective since my days at Outward Bound is that when we do something experientially, we become students of our own behavior. We are just in it, right? And we're having fun, we're throwing a ball, we're making a circle on the ceiling, we're not thinking. And so what happens is the subjective becomes objective. We can see ourselves acting. So amusement helps to nudge us towards that, what do we really do in a situation? And that's what we need to do. We need to get to that real place, not what do we espouse, not our ideas, but what do we actually do? And we see ourselves do it. So I think that's the connection for me to amusement.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Okay, so I think what I had asked you to bring one piece of equipment, and that one piece of equipment is a piece of paper. I'm hoping you, and if you don't have it, you can just watch, no worries. Or you can even use a small paper. Ideally though, that you've got this kind of like 8.5 by 11 printer paper. Oh, way to go. Rebecca's got something. Okay, so this is how this is gonna go. This is a game. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna now share my screen again. Okay, here we go. Okay. And so Dennis, thank you. So one minute, maybe we'll all go on mute.
You're mute.
All right, that was me trying to be clever and let us hear people's reactions, but it didn't turn out as expected.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do a whole unmute at different points, but maybe just for this one. Use the poll feature, use the chat, hands raised, raise your hand just like that. There's different ways. And then I think one of the themes from what Dennis explained is, when our conditions change, our habits have to change. But let's see our habits in action so that it becomes it's something real that we can work with. Okay, so let's go on to a game called Paper Tear. And this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go back here for a second. I'm going to walk you through a really simple exercise. And you're going to do it. And then I'm going to break you, with Rebecca's help, into breakout rooms. So that's a hack. We're going to use these rooms. And you're going to have a chance to introduce yourself to each other. And there'll be a set of simple questions that you have to answer based on the activity. Okay, pretty straightforward. So here's how it goes. If everybody can hear me okay. This one, you have to close your eyes. Okay, so first of all, pick the piece of paper up in your hand, and now try to, the honor system here, close your eyes and just follow my directions, okay? So, and by the way, the goal is that everyone produces the same pattern on their paper. Let's see how we do, okay? So fold your paper in half and tear off the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, now fold your paper in half again and tear off the lower left-hand corner. Oops. And now fold your paper in half again and tear off the upper right-hand corner. Okay, now you can open your eyes and unfold your paper and hold it out for everyone to see. And Rebecca, if you've got a nice big screenshot, maybe you could take a picture. Oh boy. Oh my, look at Daniel. Okay, all right, so you'll have very different ones. Okay, now here's what I want you to do. You're gonna go, with Rebecca's help, we're gonna go into a breakout room. We're gonna have 10 minutes, okay? And these questions will be posted in the breakout room. I want you to introduce yourselves, and then I want you to just discuss some of these questions, okay? And compare with each other your different results, okay? You're all good, Rebecca? Can you do your magic wand?
Yes, I'm going to send people right now.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll come back and we'll have a discussion with Tracy. Welcome back, everyone. Well done, Rebecca. Thank you. That was fantastic. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I think we have to hear some comments from the different rooms. First of all, please, the insights that you might have generated from that, type them in the chat. We'll save the chat. I think, Rebecca, we should be able to share that chat, right? With people?
We can share the chat afterwards, yes.
Yeah. So insights that you came up with, love to hear some in the chat. If anybody wants to, just say a couple of the outcomes from that for them, please just put your hand up and we'll love to hear from you for a minute. Just keep it brief and then we'll go on to the next thing. Oh, actually we're going to have Tracy, which I'm really excited about. So just any quick responses.
Can I just unmute myself, or?
Yeah, go for it.
I was surprised that 3 out of the 4 that were in my group, we had the same outcome.
Wow.
Which I was blown away. Like I was like, no way, because I felt like I got it wrong.
Yeah, interesting. We all had very different ones in our group. Yeah. How about one more?
We have Michael.
Great.
Yeah, we were surprised by the diversity, and we also thought that that is an advantage. And I personally was surprised by your last question, how to optimize or improve it, and not why we should not more acknowledge diversity as the lessons learned.
That's a great point. So it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is diverse outcomes, great. If your goal is, coordinated action, then what happened in ours was we brainstormed, well, if there was a visual support, if I could ask you questions, if we had more precise language, if we had a glossary. So it's not that diversity is not important. It was just depends on what the goal was. And so I had stated one particular goal, you have to have something, for the exercise. So I think I think I'm going to move on because we're going to quickly hit the half-hour time here. And I want to invite Tracy to share her experience. I'm just going to share my screen here for 1 second if I can. Okay, just bear with me. Here we go. And that should work. You're seeing all this good stuff. Okay. Sorry about that. Well, maybe I'm not going to share this. All right, well, I'll share it afterwards. So Tracy, would you be, I'd love to hear your experience using that activity. I was trying to share the different images that you share with me. I'll try to get it up, but.
Okay, no worries. First of all, it's great. Thank you so much for inviting me into the space. It's really exciting to see all people interested in learning by doing, which is one of my favorite modalities for learning. So the paper tear is an activity that we at the Water Center use a lot, and you can use it with little children, and it's a great one to use with young children. I used it as young as 5-6-year-olds because it helps them when they see all the differences to see the importance of asking questions, of asking clarification, and to advocate for themselves as they're trying to follow directions. So we use terminology on the second round, like let's do a hamburger fold or a hot dog fold, because some people are folding paper, you know, more the horizontal way, and others are doing more this way. So using words to help clarify directions. So really great exercise to get into some of those teacher-student, especially with young children. What's probably my favorite way to use the exercise is with large groups, and I try to anchor it in something that they're working on. So large groups, for example, government agencies or large corporations who are rolling out a new policy or a new expectation or a new program. So especially in times of COVID, much of that communication methodology is done via email, a lot of written words, and in one-way webinars where a leader might get on and talk through something, and there's 200, 300 people listening to those instructions with the expectation that it's going to be going through some kind of implementation, that people will interpret the words in the same way and then follow through, which, as we know, oftentimes doesn't happen. So what happens when you do that exercise with that context and you have people talk about the differences that they see in the space, there's some really interesting insights, and some have already been mentioned. Some insights are, well, is it really a good thing that everybody does it the same way? Because if that happens, if that's our goal, we might be resisting innovation. We might be resisting out of the box ideas that we wouldn't have otherwise. Looking at the importance of also seeing surfacing assumptions that people are making. You know, a question that we ask in the debrief is, how does this exercise help us see the importance of checking our assumptions and the mental models we hold that cause us to act in certain ways? Let me ask that again. Yeah. How does this exercise help us see the importance of checking our assumptions and the mental models we hold that cause us to act in certain ways? And so with all of these exercises, the exercise in facilitating that piece, that's the easy part. The most important part with all of these is the debrief, coming up with those really keen questions, allowing people to make connections between the exercise and the work at hand. I love it because when you give people a joint space for play that is relatively risk-free and give them that common experience, and then gradually make those connections to the work, riskier conversations surface in safe ways. And therefore, people walk away with insights and new ways of doing and adjusting that are going to improve how people are working together, and also that joint effort to achieve desired outcomes, desired results. So.
Fantastic. Thank you. We good? Any quick comment on that before I move on? If you do, just raise your hand real quick.
Sorry, Jorge has a question about whether you can give some examples of questions for debriefing.
So usually start very simple, just as Linda did with the exercise, you know, well, what happened? And get people's, so sometimes we use the ladder of inference and in the lower parts of that ladder, for those of you that know that tool, and saying, what did you notice? In other words, the observations, what did you hear? You know, just those lower level, without interpretation, what happened? And then go up the ladder to say, and what meaning might we add to what happened? You know, so how do your past experiences, you know, help you see, you know, well, what was it about perspective? Was it about, you know, the way I interpreted the directions or the words? Was it copying what other people were doing and trying to see, you know, what others were doing in the space? What Linda asked us to close our eyes in that, when I do this in like a Zoom setting, I usually don't. I hold the paper below the webcam and ask everybody to hold their paper below and to look at one another as we're doing it. Okay. And it just kind of makes it a little, it's like kind of more real. And so, yeah, so, and then for debriefing, and again, it's through practice, to be able to weave people's comments into questions that takes them further and takes them deeper. And so, you know, being able to take someone's comment and say, and what would that mean, you know, for this situation? Or can you think of where this might apply in, you know, your day-to-day interactions? What could we learn from this exercise that would change the way we make decisions tomorrow? Or how could this exercise help us improve the way we communicate, not only with people that we supervise, but how can we harvest their ideas and have them close that loop and have them inform, you know, the way we roll out new ideas or the way we implement new policies. Yeah. Especially in government agencies, I have found that this exercise generated conversations that truly did change the way they, you know, I was thinking about an early childhood Department of Education. It really did change the way they were communicating about COVID procedures in preschools and whether we go remote or not remote, and being very, you know, transparent about all those key decisions that are very emotionally charged. It really did change.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think if I could, because I really want to get to some other few quick things before we'll open it up for like a very, a few minutes at the end of Q&A. So I'll have some more chances for questions. So I'm going to try to share my screen again. Let's see if this works. And there we go. So this is, here we go. This should work. This is from Tracy. Some of the options that you found. I'm sure one of yours, Ehab, I hope I'm saying your name right. You said, is it one of these? Was it? No, so it's another one, right? There's Michael's diversity. There you go. Okay. Paper tear, you can use, I think breakout rooms, especially in that situation, can be really powerful because you can really get into the nitty gritty. One thing that we didn't talk about was I would typically do this 2 more times. So then you would start to put some of your insights into practice. Okay, so I need common language. Okay, I need more precise. Okay, I need to be able to see, you know, that's improving, moving from one-way communication to a really rich, more productive conversation, which when we're doing anything related to the complex systems, in my opinion, is so central. And sometimes we skip over that. Okay, so communication improved by interaction, visualization, and inquiry. All right, so here we go. I think what's going to happen now, because we had such a rich group conversation, I won't be able to go fully into this. I think what I want to do is get you to some of the virtual world that I talked about and some other things just to show you what's possible. I will probably offer something else in relationship to this so we can continue this conversation. But I can show you, why don't I talk you through this instead of actually doing it? I just want to give you like where I was going with this. So paper fold is a game in the playbook where you're folding, oh gosh, it's hard not to actually do it. But what it does is it gets to the idea of exponential growth, okay? And you have to, and you can demonstrate it by folding the paper. I think we're gonna have to do it. I don't know how to, we'll just have to, okay. So you have, we're gonna do it. It's hard not to do it. Okay, so I use a napkin. You can, if you have another piece of paper, grab another piece of paper, okay? We're gonna demonstrate this idea of an exponential growth, doubling, okay? So I have a piece of paper, I'll fold the paper in half once each second, a napkin, as long as I can. With each fold, its thickness doubles. After 4 folds, it's about a centimeter or 0.4 inches thick. My question for you is, suppose I could fold it 29 more times. How thick do you think it would be? And so here you can see, sorry, I'm just looking. If I could fold that 29 more times, which I can, let's just do like actually old-fashioned raise of hands. Do you think it would be this thick? Raise your hand. Do you think it would be, from the floor to, I'm about almost 5'10", so would it be that thick or less? Raise your hand. Do you think, let's see, what's another one? As tall as a giraffe, which is typically 18 feet. Raise your hand, or less. Who thinks it's more than that? Raise your hand. Okay, so the actual amount is about 5,000 kilometers, which is 3,400 miles. And that's the different distance between, Michael, are you in Germany? Michael von Katzenbach? Yes, it's about the difference, it's the distance between Boston and Germany. And so typically when I do that exercise, especially now that we have this online features, you can do a poll. You can put some of the numbers and get people to actually do a thought experiment, guess which one they think, is it less than this, less than this, less than this. So you can, and they often, people don't understand the impact of doubling. And so when I show that, like, what's the behavior look like on a behavior over time graph, it's that hockey stick look. And the key question, I think, is what set of interactions is producing that behavior? And when you ask that question, that gets you into the kind of causal loop diagram that says, well, the thickness of the cloth leads to, more amount added by folding. As you add more folding, you get a thicker cloth, and you get that reinforcing feedback. And it's that engine that's creating that kind of doubling effect. The thing is, we're often not aware of it because, like I said, when we turn the radio up, we get the linear kind of proportionate outcome, or we drive our car, right? Put the foot on the gas pedal and you get a proportional result. But, compounding exponential growth, you get a small change can have a really big impact. And I think there's so many examples we could come up with where we want to be able to discuss that. We want to anticipate that. We want to be able to talk about it. So paper fold can be a really good way to do it. I just want to say, if anybody has kids, another really wonderful way to get to the same conversation is a game I call either jelly beans or Cheerios or whatever really small thing you have that's attractive to a young person. and I say, I agree to pay you 1 jelly bean for each day on the chessboard. For the next 63 days, I give you double the jelly beans I gave the day before. You agree to eat all the jelly beans I give you on each day. Sound good? What do you think? Do you think most kids would go for that? Actually, yes. And then they realize, whoa, I got 1 the first day, 2 the second day, 16. But wait a second, on the 11th day, I got to eat 1,024 jelly beans. And by the 64th day, I'm going to be sick. So they get it viscerally, what this doubling means. I think there's a really nice connection to what's happening now, unfortunately, with exponential growth in COVID. And there is no reason that young people of all ages can't really grok and get that the hockey stick is, what are the dynamics? What are the, what's leading to that kind of hockey stick approach? And I think for kids, you can get them back to, just making a connection between, let's say, wearing a mask and the compound, the impact of that on combining their actions on the whole. Just lastly, because I'm really want to be pushing people at a younger and younger ages to be thinking about these things. Some of the really simple books out there that will get you right to this exponential growth. 1 Grain of Rice is, I think, very available worldwide. Anno's Magic Seeds, and a really old one called Trickster Tales that will be harder to find is there's one in there called Sissa and the Troublesome Trifles. That's also all about exponential growth. So, okay, so paper fold. If we were really doing it, everybody was doing it together, we can use a chat, hands raised, poll. Also on using the whiteboard, exponential growth, small growth rates can quickly lead to extremely large numbers. Okay, so here's something I'm just going to demo real quick, and then I think we need to pause so that you have a couple minutes to ask some questions. If you take a look at your annotate feature, and I'm just looking, where is annotate? Okay, so this is actually interesting.
And annotate might be turned off here. I don't.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you're just going to have to imagine with me. Okay, so what happens when you're running your own Zoom meeting? So I did this with my own Zoom, but I'm on the society's Zoom. Annotate allows you to, when you screen share, I can actually draw on that picture, and you can as well. You can have a line, you can have a stamp. And so if you look in the playbook, there's a game, actually it's in the climate change playbook, there's a bathtub game, and it's all around experiencing the dynamics of stocks and flows. You can have people put a stamp on the left-hand side to represent them, and they can walk in and out of the bathtub just on Zoom. Okay, I'm going to show you quickly how you can do that in this virtual world as well. Okay, same thing. You see web of life and triangles. Web of life, imagine just people can draw connections between different variables in a system if you put the image up on your screen share using Zoom. Does that make sense? I hope. But I would have demonstrated it for you, and I'm sorry that I didn't realize that different Zooms have different. So let's try to go. I really want you to see this before we hop off. Let's see. All right, sorry. You don't want that. Let's see if I can get back. Okay. Well, here, I am now all of a sudden stuck. Okay, there we go. I'm going to get you to, I think this is worth doing for 1 second. If it works, this is the last experiment. Let's see if we can do this. I'm going to get you to GatherTown. So GatherTown is a virtual world, and it should be set up that I can just go right into it. And I want to show you something that's really exciting. And if anybody wants to play and do more of this with me, you're going to get a survey. And on that survey, you can say, I want to do more. And we'll, if it's not going to come up, I'll just have to describe it. Hold on 1 second. Okay, here we go. Just hang in with me for a second. There we go. Okay. So do you see this?
I think you might need to share a different screen. This
Oh.
is showing your other presentation.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to share again. And I'm going to share this. Okay. Okay, great. Do you see this? Yeah? You see it, Rebecca, just so I know?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So what you can see is, hopefully, see this little avatar? That's me. And I can walk in and out of this bathtub. So if you know the bathtub game, what happens is you have everybody lined up on the left-hand side. This in person, that's what we do, right? And what we're getting is the dynamics of the inflow and the outflow. And if I have more flowing in than flowing out, what happens to the level of the tub? You know, we talk that that's the kind of conversation we would have. But you can replicate that in a virtual world. And the interesting thing about this particular one, this Gather Town, is it has a whiteboard. So if you want to, you know, map causal loops or anything, you can click on the whiteboard and you can do that all within one place. I would not go from Zoom to virtual. I would invite people to do the whole session in a virtual world. You don't need to go out to you can have a chat, because it's, as the avatars are close to each other, they can hear and talk to each other. So I'm going to stop there because I hope that gives you sort of a sense of possibilities. And we have 4 minutes. So any last, and by the way, I think I mentioned this, we'll send a survey out and you'll be able to, you know, if you're interested in adding your ideas, I'd love to hear them. I'll take as many as I can and put them into that document, and I'll share it. But I'd love to hear any, and please, everybody can unmute. And if you have any comments, just raise your hand and Rebecca will, and comments or questions.
Yeah, George Rivera, Jorge.
George Rivera.
Are you still here?
Yes,
Okay.
But I have no questions. So thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. Go ahead. Anybody else?
Max Kleeman.
Yeah, I just think this is really great, but we are already noticing that time is too short. And I also think, you know, this is in a way just the beginning, in the sense that now that we will be practicing this, we will come up with our own hacks. So I think it would be good if we could have like some kind of forum where, you know, everybody could share the hacks that they have discovered. I don't know, maybe this is something that can be set up under the roof of the System Dynamics Society potentially.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, we could try to do that. We would love to have a number of people who could help us think about how best to do that and maybe help moderate it. If there are folks who would like to help with that, please put your name in the chat and let me know, and we can try to set something up to figure out how best to do that.
Great.
And Daniel? Liam?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to know if there are games where you've experienced that kind of even work better online than like physically.
I couldn't hear that, Rebecca.
Yeah, I think it was, can you say that again, Daniel? I heard it partly, but I had a little trouble hearing.
I was wondering if there are games that you've taken online that work better online than you've experienced that before while playing it offline.
Ah, that is a great question. I know the opposite. I know the one that I absolutely love, that's my hands down favorite, is thumb wrestling. And I'll tell you, thumb wrestling with just yourself solo doesn't work. I have to think about that. It's a really great question. I think I'm really excited, honestly, Daniel, about triangles in a virtual world. Yes, that one I think would be could be really like spectacular, because you're looking down at the system in a virtual world. And in triangles, when you do it in person, you're in it. So you're sort of getting what's going on, but when you are in a virtual world, it'll be different. So I think that one I'd love to play with people here on. Good question. Great idea, Jillian.
We have Anna Karina.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to share that this was really a very surprising, excellent experience for me. So thank you very much. I think it's really interesting to explore how the ludic part of us can eventually help to perceive systems differently. And yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. All right, we're gonna have a play group around triangles. I can see that there's interest in that. So, and to be right on time, we should probably wrap up. But I'm here. You know, reach out, and we'll look at a lot of what's happened in the comments, and I'll have a follow-up conversation with Rebecca, and to be continued.
Yep, and just so you know, from the society, I think Birgit, I don't know if she's still on here, our president, Birgit Kapansky, has committed to bring a group of people together to talk about how they used Miro, and there happens to actually be a recent, and I believe it's open source, system dynamics review article about that, and we have a number of other people who want to kind of convene folks to share how we're doing this online. So it sounds like there's a lot of interest here. We'll try to expedite some of that and get some of the other folks who have expressed an interest in convening us and figure out a good way to do that. So appreciate all of your interest and participation. And
1 minute, I'm sorry, Rebecca. I just, for those who want to jumpstart, I just put the Google form with the survey, but it will also come out to you as a follow-up.
Great.
All right, fantastic.
So there's a lot going on in here. Can you put it in again in the chat? Because I can't even see it at this point.
Okay.
So that people can find it, because there's a lot going on in there.
Gotcha.
Great.
Fantastic.
So the Google document is in here. So a couple things up.
Yeah. And by the way, if anybody goes to my website, of course, today is the day that it goes down. So I'll fix it, but if you need to reach out, I think my Linda@lindaboothsweeney.net is probably a good way. All right.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye.